actually start the listening session. Again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's just turning 6:30, but we still have multiple people joining, so we will wait another minute or two before we call the meeting to order. Again, just as a reminder, this is a board listening session, so the board, myself, we will be limited in our responses to people, but we will make sure that anybody who wants to talk to the school board that they are allowed to tonight. All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We have quite a few participants, which is wonderful. The board is here to listen. This is a listening session. To make this work, we will need to have participants go into the chat room. Will unmute you. So we don't want just chat questions. We want people to be able to speak. So in the chat session at the bottom of your page, if you would just say, for example, I see Mallory Umar is here. If Mallory wants to speak, she just will type her name, Mallory Umar, and in order of people typing into the chat room, I'll ask Karan Jamo to unmute you so that you can have a 3-minute session with the school board. Again, I'll let Mr. Franklin start the meeting, and then we will get started. Mr. Franklin. Oh, Andy, you're still muted though.
There we go. Can we hear me now? Larry, can you hear me?
Yep, there you go, Mr. Franklin. Now there you go.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're going to do a roll call. Danielle Bailey. Well, Danielle is also on mute here, and I don't know if Tamika is off mute yet. It doesn't look like
Here.
she's.
I was just unmuted. The host unmuted me.
Oh,
I'm
perfect.
here.
All right, you're here. Tamika, are you here?
I know that Tamika's here. She's not on mute. There she is.
She's muted.
Tamika, 1 second. We'll unmute you so you can say you're here.
Here.
Great, and Andrew Franklin's here. Then I think that we need to formally approve the agenda.
Yep.
Larry, is that correct? So is there a motion to formally approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Danielle? Okay, all in
Second.
favor? All in favor, roll
Aye.
call. Okay, and Tamika Vukovic
Aye.
and Andrew Franklin, aye, motion carries. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you again for joining us.
So I guess I'll just be a quick start, and then Andy, you can start with the listening session. Before each board meeting for the last 2, I've only said my recommendation if school started tomorrow. Understanding that I always put that caveat out there, and then people seem to forget that I start with my sentences if school started tomorrow. Things are changing rapidly. 3 weeks ago, I said if school started tomorrow, I would recommend that it's K-5 through 5th grade or through 6th grade in session in small group cohorts with 7th and 8th virtual and no K4. Last week, I would have recommended that kids come into school. I will tell you right now, not only is Glendale-River Hill School District being proactive and up to date, but I was on a superintendent call today where almost every North Shore school district is rechanging their reopening plans. And I think we would change our reopening plans again between now and by the time September 1st. What I want to assure people is that we will be ready regardless of what has happened September 1st, if we are all virtual, if we're all in person, or if there's a blended approach. Today, my recommendation would probably be that we'd have to start all virtual because of the spike in COVID cases throughout the North Shore. But again, that could change within the next week or 2. At the meeting next Tuesday, we have 3 committees that have been meeting this week. I'd like to thank them all for their time and their energy and a very positive meetings for all 3 committees. And we will have that recommendation for you at the board meeting next Tuesday. But tonight's session is for people who weren't able to participate in the committee meetings, community members or staff members that wanted to talk about either the Health and Safety Committee, the Instructional Committee, and or the Social Emotional Committee. I would ask that community members and staff members stay on those topics. This is not an open session just to talk about, random educational issues. It is about those 3 committees specifically. With that, Mr. Franklin, I will turn it over to you. I'm going to mute myself. And as you see people in the chat room, I can help if you want, but you can call on people, and then I'll work with Karen and Dr. Kilton to unmute people as we find them.
Okay, so before we do that, Larry and I also talked, and I think that the best way to do this to prevent a pileup of comments is we're going to ask that you speak, like Larry said, and not type your comments into the chat function. So what I ask you to do is use the chat box if you want to speak, or if you have a question, to type your name in, and then Karen will just make sure that we keep things to the 3-minute mark so that we can give everyone a chance to speak. And so with that, I'll just give everyone a chance to, if they have thoughts to put forward, to put their name down.
Being the first person is always the most difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and Kelly, you have a general comment, and you're the first person here, so I will call on you. And if you could just state your name and address, that would be great.
My name is Kelly Steiner. My address is 7001 North Brayburn Lane. I have a will-be 3rd grader at Parkway and a will-be 5th grader at Glen Hills. And first, I really appreciate that you all are making this opportunity available. I really appreciate that you're including staff and families in the committees to work through these details. I wanted to appreciate that there is no good answer, and that there are lots of jobs you go into knowing that the decisions you make might lead to people dying, but school board member and superintendent of schools is not usually on that list. And so I wanted to just appreciate that you're in a really ugly spot. From just where I'm sitting, like, I would hate having my kids be online again. It didn't go very well, but they would be fine. And that, I think, is likely to be what's necessary to keep staff safe, to keep other students safe. And I want to make sure that the students and families who really need that access, because of their learning needs, because of their family situation, because they're little, whatever those cases are, that those kids and staff have the opportunity to go. And as much as I'm not thrilled to try to teach online in another district while having my kids also try to go to school online here, I think that that would be the right thing to do, for my kids to make space for people who need it more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know from talking to Larry that if there's going to be any virtual component, that they're working to make sure that that virtual component is robust as possible. Is there anyone else? Okay, great. Ann Ledbetter. Karen, if you can unmute Ann Ledbetter.
Hi, I just have a general question about what metric would we be looking for before we could have in-person school?
Larry, I think that's a question to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. Trying to do this from home for the first time and not in my office. I think that the quick answer is our North Shore Health Department is putting together and has put together kind of a chart of how decisions will be made. I think it depends not only on the COVID cases in the North Shore specifically, but also specifically by building. And we are working on that and should hopefully that will be part of our presentation on Tuesday. But really, we're working with the North Shore Health Department very closely to make sure that we're following all the safety measures that have to happen before schools are able to open.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think Carla is up next. Yep.
Yeah. Carla, Pennington Cross. Carla, are you there?
Carla, we've unmuted you. You can go.
Can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Awesome.
Oh, look at the mic my husband makes me use. I forgot to turn it on. Okay, I said hello. All I said, that's all you missed. I know this is an impossible year. I know there's no solution that'll meet all needs. But I just wanted to let you know that for me, right now, I would not come into a schoolhouse with 200 odd people. And as a result, I can't ask my son to do that. I'm not going to withdraw from Glendale-River Hills. I just hope that there's a virtual option that'll be available so he can have a robust education anyway. And as you know, probably more important for me right now, so that our teachers and staff can be as safe as possible. Like Nancy said at the last meeting, let's come through this year with 0 deaths. From an SEL perspective, I really worry about teachers burning out in a blended model. You know, I think about a teacher, and my husband is going through this now as a professor. How do you do live synchronous learning, virtually, live in-person classing, and asynchronous teaching? Do all of that, and for our school teachers, do the SEL work that connects you with families and kids, identify needs, meet needs. It's just asking so much. So I just want to share with you my deep concern about that. We have amazing teachers and staff. I'm on the SEL committee, the Social Emotional Learning Committee. It is very exciting. I want to thank the board and Mr. Smalley for encouraging and enabling family engagement on these committees. It's very empowering for people, and I'm excited by the number of new faces that I'm seeing. I want to thank Shannon and the other administrators for managing these committee meetings in a way that's really empowering. I feel like everyone has a voice, and there were a lot of teachers and staff participating. So I'm really excited, and I just want to share that no matter what happens, no matter what decision is made, I respect and honor the effort that I'm seeing, and I'm incredibly grateful for our district and for the open hearts of our board members. So thank you. I'm with you. We're in this together. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments. Okay, the next one on the list is Jennifer Hintz.
And mute. Hi there. I just had a quick question. You mentioned about a board meeting on Tuesday. What time of day is that board meeting going to be? Because Nicolay High School also has a listening session at 6 p.m. that evening. So those of us that have children in both districts would not be able to participate in both if the times conflict.
I'll take that, Mr. Frank. It's scheduled for 6:30, and the reason we normally have meetings on Wednesdays, there's a conflict on Wednesday. I have a conflict next Wednesday that made it impossible for me to have a board meeting next Wednesday. So Tuesday's meeting is at 6:30, and the agenda items is really just listening to the 3 committees. Dr. Kilton and Ms. Westfall and Mr. Beckman will give reports about the 3 district committees that were in place this week.
Will that be recorded? So those of us that are attending the Nicolay session can also listen at a later time to the Glendale-River Hills session.
Yes, it is recorded, and thanks to Karen Jamo
Thanks, Karen.
for getting us over to board docs. It's an easy recording that will be on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Larry, let's, and you and I can also look at that a little bit closer and see if we need to move things back, but that's a topic we can pursue. But we'll make sure that the time is well posted and that it's recorded, as Larry indicated. Samuel Purdy.
Hello, good evening. So I'm Samuel Purdy. I live at 5801 North Bel Air over in Crestwood. I'll try to move so you can see me a little better, not in shadow. I have 2 children. So one would be going into 1st grade, one would be going into K4. And we are one of the families that would prefer a virtual option in the fall. But one of the things that's been so striking to me as I've participated in these board meetings and some of the other board meetings in the area is that you have about 2/3 of parents saying, yes, I'm comfortable sending my kids back. and about 1/3 saying they're not in every district. And then you have a pretty close to a 50-50 split of staff in all of the districts on that comfortable going back and not comfortable going back. And as we look at blended models, I'd really encourage the district, instead of looking at getting kids there some days, and home some days, to really look at how can you do blended models where families can opt into being in school as much as possible, because that is what some families want and some families need. Or families can be supported completely at home, and looking at a virtual model that way, instead of having kids bounce back and forth between those settings. I think in many ways that makes planning for families like mine much easier. I also don't know any family that would want their kid in school just 2 days. I'm over speaking. I don't know every family. I know families that say, well, if we have to be virtual, I at least want my kid there 2 days a week. But that's really different than people saying, give me school 2 days a week and home 3 days a week or something else. So as you look at different models and looking at ways to reduce classroom sizes, I think having parallel options where you can also have teachers who can dedicate themselves more or less to traditional school schedules or online learning schedules can really be a way for a district that's our size that can be more nimble than some of the larger districts around and really accommodating the needs of families. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Purdy. I do want to reemphasize that the district early on we've committed to making sure that there will be an online version for at least for the first trimester, regardless if it's in school or a blended, that if families that need to choose to be home or virtual for whatever reason, that is an option for all families.
Okay, and then I don't see any other names after Mr. Purdy, but I'll give everyone an opportunity. We're not in a rush here, so if you'd like to put your name out, please don't be shy. Okay, Tracy Stetler.
You hear me now?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Hi. I promise I won't cry tonight.
And listen, I'm not forcing it very well, but if you could state your name and your address,
Yes.
that'd be great.
My name is Tracy Stetler. I live at 5367 North Edgewater Lane, right here in Glendale. I have 2 children at Nicolay who are senior and sophomore. I have an 8th grader at Glen Hills. I have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader at Parkway. So really, any way you slice the cake, we have lots of dynamics going on in my house. I wanted to speak to the largely what I wanted to speak to the importance of honoring the teachers and what works best for the teachers. At the end of the day, they are the absolute cornerstone of our schools. To our children, they are pillars of our children's communities. And so when we look at, we have like 100 teachers, more or less. And when we look at these teachers and their needs and their family dynamics, like extended generations in their home or higher risk, so on and so forth, I think that it's very important to honor what is safest for each individual teacher's position in our school system. And through that honoring of, meaning as put them in positions that align with what is safest for them on a personal level, so that they can in turn do their very, very best work for us as a school system. All around the nation, there are like teachers unions that are coming at administration and have to put their fists down in order to make sure that their teachers can be safe. And I think that because we are so much smaller than some of these systems, and because we have because we are more nimble, just like Sam Purdy said, that gives us a gift to be able to structure whatever, all of the choices around the safety factors in place. These teachers are our specialists in our children. And I was very fortunate to sign up for the 3 weeks of virtual summer academy, which was spot on. My children were more engaged than they have been in school since the shutdown started. I was right behind them watching every minute of this connection and being really encouraged about the possibilities of what virtual could look like and what virtual could be. And just 3 weeks don't hold, they are so, they don't, the shutdown and what happened during the shutdown can't even be compared to the live structure and the patience and resilience of not only the teachers to teach little tiny people how to paste and link and play a game together and come together as and brainstorm about superheroes as a big group of kids, all excited and socialize through the screen. That I think it needs to be said, this is so encouraging. And if the robust virtual system has a basis in live, it will give us teachers who are now being asked to do a whole lot of work. And so I would ask that we define these work roles by what works best for the teachers individually. Give them a voice.
Thank you very much. No, I appreciate it. And my daughter's been in summer academy too, and she had similar reaction. They've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much for pointing
Absolutely.
out.
Thank you for hearing me.
Sure. Okay, then Martin St. Maurice. I hope I pronounced that right. And
Is he under Paula or Pamela's phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you hear me
There
now?
go. Yeah.
There we go. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, hi. My name is Martin St. Maurice. I'm, so you did pronounce it right. I'm at 2324 West Dunwood Road in Glendale. Parent of 2 children that are at Parkway. My question is about masks. I've read a lot of comments that have suggested that that it might be difficult to enforce the wearing of masks by our children at school. And I wonder if that's really true. I mean, there's a ton of evidence showing that the wearing of masks is if and when we do get to a point where students return to school, there's just an overwhelming body of evidence that masks are a major factor in helping to prevent the spread. And I would expect or hope that the school would then mandate the wearing of these masks. But I've seen comments that suggest that that would be impossible or difficult to do. And I wonder why people have commented that it would be impossible or difficult to do. I think of a lot of things that we enforce with our students when they go to school. There's certain types of t-shirts that they're not allowed to wear. You know, they have to dress appropriately. They have to bring certain things. They have to maintain a certain behavioral standard. So is there, I mean, has there begun to be some thinking about, you know, where and what will be required when it comes to the wearing of masks? And if indeed it is possible to enforce that amongst all of the students, staff, and teachers?
Sure, I can answer that one. Thank you, Mr. St. Maurice. We are mandating masks for all students and all staff, and we will obviously, just like any new behavioral expectation, we have to teach it, and we will teach children how to wear masks appropriately. And again, there are exceptions to the rule, like there are exceptions to any rule. So But for 99.5% of the people that I'm thinking are required to wear masks. And that went into effect this week on Monday in both Glendale buildings.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. St. Maurice again. And I know we have a lot of participants here, and so I'm going to give everyone a chance if they want to put together a thought. But right now, we don't have anyone else in the queue. So if you put your name down, you'll be next. And Larry, while we're giving people a moment in case there's no one else with a comment, we can reiterate that that meeting right now is set for Tuesday, the 20th, 6:30, but then we'll also have a follow-up meeting the Wednesday after that.
Correct. It's Tuesday, July 28th, and then the follow-up board meeting will be Wednesday, August 5th. And my goal is that by Wednesday, August 5th, we will have a determination of saying this is how we will start as of September 1, giving parents almost a full month of time to be ready for, and our buildings and our teachers to be ready for what is the final decision.
I have a question about what you just said, Larry.
Sure.
Is that and this is just policy, I don't know this one, does it have to go through the board, or is it a recommendation, or is it a done deal with the policy?
It's
Like
a
whatever.
recommendation
Okay.
to the board, and the board will either say yes to the recommendation in full or take the recommendation as, you like A, B, C, change D to this. Or so ultimately, the board will decide how we are going to start.
Well, that's what I just wanted to clarify, that you are giving your recommendation after hearing everything and talking, and then we as a board decide amongst ourselves if what we've heard in these sessions, go with what you have put in, and then go from there. So just letting people know that the board is not putting this together. It is Larry's job and the staff job to put it together. Our job is to listen to what he says after we have heard everything that you guys have said and decide if this is the best course. So it's a twofold, and I just want to iterate, that's why I'm not saying much in these. I am listening. I have been listening. So just because someone had made a comment that I haven't said much, because this is for us to listen. This is for us to gather what you know, or you want to tell us. You'll hear what we have to say on the 5th when he gives us our recommendation and we discuss it back and forth. But overall, I just want to let people know that we are not being short-sighted. We're not just not participating. We're actually trying to listen to what you're saying. And then we can make a decision when it comes to the time for decisions. But this is not the time for us to speak. And I just wanted to iterate that because I've gotten a couple of messages with, why aren't you speaking? Why aren't you saying anything? I just wanted to tell you where I was coming from.
Thanks, Tamika.
Okay.
And
did I say anything that was incorrect, Larry? Just correct me if I am wrong on any of that aspect.
Nope, you're exactly right.
Okay.
And then Mr. Franklin, looks like Ms. Stetler has a quick question for us.
Yeah, Ms. Stetler, why don't you follow up? But because other people haven't gone, if you just keep it brief, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Very brief. I'm just wondering if if it would be a worthwhile endeavor to have a second survey to the parents, specifically with a question about, seems there's a growing consensus that if the virtual system is robust, that some of us might opt to choose the virtual system in order to alleviate some of the pressure from any in-person thing that might be happening with the teachers. And I'm wondering if it might be a worthy endeavor to simply ask that question of parents. Would you be up to putting your child in a virtual start to alleviate some of the pressure about social distancing and class numbers in schools? I guess, is there going to be another survey once we get closer, or?
Larry, Larry, I would just want to, before you answer that, I get where she's coming from. I think we need to put out the plan before we do another survey, just because if you don't know the plan, it's just going to keep going. I think her question would be great once we have a plan out, because whichever way we go, if it's blended or not, I believe that then we can see this is our structure. We have something that we're trying to structure, then we can get more input. But I think another survey is just adding, and I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, but adding more to the flame. We just need to have a structure right now. This is what we're doing. Like, say if we say, everybody's going to school. Now, then you will know, we'll get the comments because this is what we've decided, or we have not, you know what I mean? Then we can get back to understanding where the parents are coming from. So I think right now, we don't know where we're going yet. We haven't seen the plan. So right now, I'm not trying to disrespect you in any way whatsoever.
I completely understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
no,
I completely understand.
And just to circle back and support what Tamika is saying, I think that once we have that plan, out there, that then we can go back to those key stakeholders that we have, the community, our parents, and our staff, and go to each of them and say, hey, this is what needs to be done. We've already taken some of their input into account, but then to fine tune things and to go back, I certainly think there's a role to do that. To keep people invested and part of that process. Thank you so much. Okay, I think Jenny Doss is the next one.
Hi. Thank you for having this listening session. So I am on the curriculum committee, and I want to start out by saying that I really appreciate having the chance to have the committees. I love how many stakeholders are present for the committee and here as well, that I've heard a lot of really excellent points of view, and that makes me really hopeful for what will be presented for ideas for the fall. And that I know that I've heard from staff as well as many parents' perspectives about many different families and how we need to make sure, whether it's virtual, in person, or blended, that the different types of families are being taken into consideration. I just wanted to again bring up the special ed and thinking about, especially for virtual, but virtual blended, that we're taking into consideration how those kiddos are learning, what kind of time the teachers would need for making accommodations, the time that they would need to make lessons, the time that they would need for working with the regular ed teachers to make sure that there is robust lessons so that students are not being left behind. So thank you for making sure that our voice is heard.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, Justin Rodriguez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello. I know we've talked about having a blended model for in-person and virtual. And what my wife and I were wondering was, is there sufficient staff right now to do a blended model for all grades? Or is it some grades would have it, some grades wouldn't? Is it that more staff would need to be retained and we're getting very close to the school year? And then I have a second question about last time that the board had met, there was a discussion about younger kids being less likely to get COVID or to transmit COVID. And my question about that is whether or not that is still the underlying assumption that is informing the recommendation that will be made by Director Smalley.
I can answer both of those questions. Mr. Rodriguez, we do believe that we have enough staff right now. The board has talked about over the last couple of meetings, if we need to increase staffing, we can. But the plan that we will be presenting to the board is with our current staff members. As for the transmission of COVID by younger children of 10 or younger, that's the information that I've received from the North Shore Health Department and also from Children's Hospital. But again, I don't know if that's the entire North Shore Health Department's recommendation. That's only one piece of their puzzle when they are making recommendations to their schools.
If I can ask one follow-up,
Sure.
Director Franklin. Is North Shore Health Department making a recommendation to individual schools?
They are making, yes, to put it bluntly, yes, they are, but they are doing it kind of as from district to district, not by school to school, if that makes sense.
Okay, now that makes sense. Have they given the board or yourself an idea of when that recommendation would come?
When I present them our plan, then they will give us their thumbs up or their thumbs down to the plan.
Okay.
And we are doing that as a North Shore, all the districts are doing that together. We may have different plans, but we're presenting them to the North Shore Health Department around the same time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yep.
Okay. And unless I missed anyone, I think Mr. Rodriguez was the last one on that list. So if there's someone else who'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please feel free to come forward. I would ask that you also put your name and your address when you speak. We've had a lot of great comments so far, and I appreciate everyone who's come. We do have about 100 people in the room, so I'm just trying to make sure, Larry, that we don't have any dead air here. So if someone wants to speak, now's a great time.
Andy, I think we're just about ready to call it a night with just the caveat that if people think of ideas or questions after the fact, they are free to give me an email or to give you an email, and we will get answers back to people as quickly as we can. Earlier today, it took me a while from the last board meeting. When you printed out the chat box, there's 14 pages, but those questions and answers were put up on the website this afternoon. I was able to get through every single question. My answers are in blue next to the question, and they're up on the website right now. So if people have more questions or concerns, they can definitely email me.
Yeah, and then next week and the week after, when we have more specifics, there will also be an opportunity for the public to comment on those.
Correct.
All right, well, I do think that we're at a point where it seemed like people who want to speak, thank you, Ms. Doss, for writing that down, the people who wanted to speak have had that opportunity. I don't want to keep everyone here longer than necessary. I also don't want to push people out the door. Okay, so Patty, and now I'm going to mispronounce your last name, Zymans.
Carla, we know your address by heart.
Can you hear me?
Patty, is that you?
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
great.
My video is not working, and
Don't
so
worry.
that's why you can't see me. You're just seeing a black box. My apologies for that. And so, well, first of all, my name is Patty Zymans, and I live at 5819 North Argyle Avenue in the Crestwood subdivision. I have a son who will be in 7th grade at Glen Hills, and I'm also a teacher at Nicolay. So I guess I would like to speak to, and I know it's been alluded to, but one concern that I've seen or heard community members that they have is that if we go all virtual, which in my personal opinion is the safest choice, their concern is they're thinking back to the virtual learning that took place in the spring. And I'm speaking as a teacher who went through that experience as a teacher and as a parent. And I guess I just want to remind everyone that we were in crisis mode. Everyone was in crisis mode. We had, teachers and families, we stopped on a dime and had to sort of revamp entire curriculums. And, the main focus at that point was survival and helping our kids through emotionally a really unstable time. And so maybe there wasn't a lot of new instruction being done. It was more, let's at least keep the kids engaged somewhat with what's happening. And so I know it's been said already, but even with Summer Academy this year, my son was taking a few classes so much better virtually. And I know that teachers, and Mr. Franklin, you've said this too, that you're going to make sure it's a robust curriculum, a robust virtual learning experience for kids. And I know the Nicolay teachers next week, 3 days, we're doing PD, professional development, for virtual learning, just to be prepared for whatever may happen next year. And so I just think a lot of people are concerned about that. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a repeat of the spring, and is my kid going to learn anything? But with time to prepare, yes, it will be much better. And I can't take credit for this comment because I saw someone else on a probably social media say this, but I like it, so I'm just going to say it, but it's not mine. She said something about, we're spending a lot of time and resources on taking, the old system or being back in school and trying to make it as safe as possible, when really maybe we should be spending our time and resources on making the safest option better. So I just want to end by saying thank you, everyone, school board members, Superintendent Smalley. This is not easy at all, and I appreciate all your work. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And just to clarify, were you asking a question about the professional development or the staff role, or was it just a comment?
No, I wasn't asking a question. I was just commenting that with time now and sort of learning from last spring, teachers will have opportunities to perhaps improve on the virtual teaching part of it. Because they were in crisis mode in the spring, but now it's more time to prepare. So more of a statement rather than a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Simons. And you're 100% correct. We were able to do professional development for our Summer Academy teachers, hence the much better Summer Academy virtual. Just like you, I know that I was with Mr. Cabarra today, and you guys are doing training next week. Our teachers are also, we've set up professional development for our teachers in August. So the teachers on the chat, you're gonna get that email from Ms. Westfall tomorrow about the dates and times that we are having professional development to make sure that if and when we need to do a virtual, that we'll be much more better prepared, as Ms. Simons just talked about.
I have a question, Larry. There will, and I'm sorry, I don't have, I didn't see the virtual from this summer. So what you're saying is because we have time to prepare, or we had time to prepare, the Summer Academy virtually worked out a lot better? Is that what you're saying, or?
Exactly, yes.
So and also that it's possible that what happened in the fall or in the spring would not happen in the fall because you have time. Is that what you're also saying?
I am exactly, okay. That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Again, as Ms. Simons just alluded to, March 13th was a shock to the entire educational system of not only in Glendale, but of every school district. And again, I think she said it well. I think we did well considering there was a pandemic and this was 100% new. But now that we've had time to reflect on what went well and what didn't go well, we will be much better prepared in the fall. And Mr. Franklin, I think we have one late addition, Ms. Cat.
Correct.
Hi, I'm Erica Cack. I have 3 kids, one starting K4, one going into 4th, and one going into K5. My address is 6598 North Crestwood Drive. I just wanted to add about the possibility of doing another survey. I've been talking to a lot of families, a lot of parents, and it sounds like a lot of people plan on going virtual no matter what, the district says. So if you did that survey and you find out that you only have half the kids to even that would even possibly come back, that can definitely change a plan. So, I mean, the main issue is there's not enough space, right? There's not enough space to keep the 6-foot social distancing. I design offices and we're trying to get people back in the office, and space is the problem. But if you only have half the kids, that can totally, change what this floor plan can look like and how you can lay out these desks and tables and do it in a safe way. So for people like me that are working full time that would really love to have kids back, 2 days or anything, I mean, I'll take anything. That would be amazing. It would be really helpful. I mean, like the virtual learning was a total disaster for us because I can't do it all. I'm stretched too thin. So if we really only have half the kids that we're trying to bring back, maybe we can find out what those numbers are, and that can really affect the plan. Thanks.
No, I definitely think that we need to make sure that we keep track of where people are once we have these solid plans. And one thing that I would just say is, in my general perception of surveys and whatnot, we should definitely use them. They're not always the end all and the be all, but they're definitely a very good guide and other sorts of information that we can use. So I appreciate your comments. And I see Annie Touches.
Sorry, my dog came and touched me on my foot and it scared me. I apologize.
Hey, I'm sure it wasn't toward Miss Touches then.
No, I apologize. Please forgive me. He just came across my foot and scared the heck out of me. Sorry.
Andy, before Annie speaks, can I think I don't know if Larry can chime in, but I'm under the impression that we are sending a survey to parents this following week, or that's being discussed. So I think that, I know that you guys are sort of saying that perhaps after we have a plan, but I think there might be some, I don't know if you guys have seen this, if there be some good information we might be able to get from that, like what people are getting at, people who will decide virtuals, perhaps no matter what, for their own reasons, and also perhaps getting at sort of what factors people are looking at or what's motivating them to want to do different choices. I would also support a survey after we have specific plans that might address specific parts of like where people would need support or resources, or that, just ironing out specifics a little more about how we can best serve our community and our parents and our kids and our staff, perhaps around virtual learning too. So anyway, I don't know if Larry, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that is of the plan right now.
Well, Ms. Bailey, thank you. Dr. Kelton and Ms. Westfall and I put together, with your help, a new survey that we sent to the board this afternoon. So Ms. Vukovic and Ms. Franklin, you might not have seen it yet. And in that email to you guys, I stated that we would like to send it out on Monday, but I have not received all board comments back yet, Danielle.
Okay, so sorry, I don't know.
So, a few people, Annie, and then Brianna Nigro. Yes, Nigro.
Hi, this is Annie Touches, K4 teacher. And unfortunately, I was not able to attend any of the committee meetings this week. I was out of town. But I'm curious as to what discussions might have occurred related to sanitizing toys. As my teaching partner, Jenny Della Pasqua, and I have talked about literally the thousands of pieces in the play centers, toy-wise, and we have concerns as far as keeping them sanitized between usage. And I'm just wondering, has the district looked into anything, and I don't even know if this technology is good or not, regarding, say, light sources that can somehow disinfect? My head spins when I think about cleaning the Legos and keeping the Legos and the pattern blocks and such clean between usage. So that's my question.
I can jump in on that because that's the Health and Safety Committee that we will be reporting back on that. And yes, we are looking at multiple ways. One of our members on the Health and Safety Committee is actually a person who does that exact same thing for healthcare. And he's given us multiple options of being able to purchase different items that will be able to clean an entire room in a very quick time. So Mr. Beckman's working on that report so that we can get it to the board on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we have Brianna Negro. And I hope that I pronounced it correct. It's either short I or long I, Tamika.
Pardon me? I love it.
Brianna?
This is coffee, so trying to stay awake here.
This is tea for the record.
Okay. Do we have Brianna? If not, we can move to.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Why do I see her still? Maybe she stepped away. Just come back to her.
Yeah. Carrie Zutov. And if I mangled your name, feel free to call me out on that as well.
It's Carrie Zaitoff, and then we can let Patty Zymans come back. She has a clarification, but we'll let Carrie go first, and then Patty, and then Brianna.
Brianna said she was muted, so.
So we'll do Carrie first, and then Patty, and then Brianna.
Perfect. Carrie?
They're trying to unmute her. Who? Okay, there we go.
There we go. Hi, Carrie Zaidoff, 6840 North Glenshore Drive in Glendale. Couple things, just again, as a parent, as an educator myself, I do not envy those who have to make final decisions. There's not a great solution to any of this. I hope we choose the one that is safest for everyone universally. And I appreciate the opportunity to have parents and community members' voice on the work groups. I'm on the instruction committee currently. Two things I want to say, and I just want to keep reiterating. We need to, of course, look at the students and of course, look at the staff and what is best for them, but also for the community itself, which is to mitigate and try to, diminish the spread of COVID, obviously. So I just hope that we make the decision that is best to keep everyone safe. The second thing I want to ask specifically, and I have talked to an administrator about this, and I have mentioned this to a school board member, and I have not had a chance to ask this on the instruction work group, but there are many staff members who are switching grade levels, switching subject areas, more so than in normal circumstances. There's always shifting in schools from grade level and things, but there are an overwhelming number of staff who are in new positions or will be starting in new new positions. So I'm very concerned about that, especially if we're going to an all virtual model where we need to revamp and revise and how virtual learning was done before. And I'm just concerned about that. So I'm stating my concern, but then my question is, on top of learning how to best teach virtually and how to engage our students, how are we truly going to support staff who are not only going through that, but also starting in totally new grade levels with totally new team dynamics? And I'm curious of the response to that.
I can jump on, and that's not a cop-out, Carrie. I think that question really has to be addressed to Dr. Smith and to Mr. Rogers and Ms. Tucker. Those are building level decisions, and that's where the answer would come from.
And are those people not here today to answer those questions?
I'm not sure if they are on here or not, but I can.
What about?
I can have Dr. Smith reach out to you.
I would hope that the community would be able to hear a response from you or from Jenica, somebody. I mean, from my understanding, there are 17 staff changes at Parkway alone. And I know there are many changes at Glen Hills as well. That's an overwhelming amount. If that was happening in my district, the staff and the parents would be revolting. I'm going to be really blunt and honest with you, in a non-pandemic, and now all the changes that are happening, and I'm deeply concerned about that.
I hear your concern, and I will get an answer for you. I don't want to say something that might not be correct. So I will get the answer and I will get it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Ms. Zeithoff. Okay, then I think we were going to go to Ms. Zimon's again, just for a quick clarification, but then back to Brianna. So, Ms. Zimon's?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Sorry. After I made my comment before, I felt a little concerned that my implication was that I was not happy or that I was not grateful for everything that the teachers did in the spring in terms of virtual learning. And that is so not the truth. And I know we may have some faculty members in this discussion. I was incredibly grateful for our staff at Glen Hills, and my son, did actually well with virtual learning, or as well as he could have given the circumstances. So I wanted to clarify that my comment was more for people who may be concerned about how virtual learning went for their children in the spring. But I am incredibly grateful, and I know the staff worked very hard and were basically superheroes, in my opinion, and how quickly they turned everything around for virtual learning. So thank you for letting me clear that up.
No problem. Let me just follow up. I don't think there's anyone who took it that way. You're trying to give some constructive comments, and it's also a challenging time. But thank you very much for saying that again. Okay, Brianna.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. If you could,
okay, good.
Also, if you could also put your address forward too.
Sure. My name is Brianna Nigro, 1830 West Greenwood Road, and I am a parent of incoming K4 first and third grade at Parkway. I'm also on the Health and Safety Committee. I guess my question right now, though, is, however, more in regards to the virtual learning. I'm guessing this concern has been brought back up. I do agree. I work part-time, so fortunately was able to be home and do virtual, the summer academy 1 week with my children. And I do agree that it was better in some aspects, but that would be in the fact that it was a live class. I think the biggest concern for me as someone that is an essential worker, kind of piggybacking on Erica's comments, what is being done to make sure that working parents who, our children are being watched by a daycare provider or a grandma, kind of divided care, that they're being reached, since they probably won't be able to participate in any live online classes.
Rand, I think that's going to be answered by Ms. Westfall at Tuesday's meeting. I think I know that the instructional committee is preparing to come back with multiple options of what does it look like if it's full virtual, what does it look like if it's blended, what does it look like in person, and for each one of those. And I don't want to step on Ms. Westfall's toes and say we were going to do this if the committee's thinking differently. So I don't have the report yet, but it's coming on Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that, if live classes, which were really excellent, I just want to make sure that people that aren't able to do that are being, covered.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I believe the next one is it Kayla Silverthorne?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so a few questions that I have, because I work at Parkway with special education kids and normally early childhood and K4. I was just curious if we did go back, what was going to happen when one of our children has a bathroom accident or needs to be changed. We need to be socially distant from them. So how is that possible?
It's a great question.
I can jump on that because that was part of the health and safety committee. Is again, we do expect social distancing, physical distance as much as possible, with the understanding that especially younger kids will need some appropriate touch at times. They need a hand on the shoulder, or as Kayla's just talking about, for some kids with special needs, or even young, 4 and 5-year-olds that have accidents. You cannot 100% socially distance, which is what I've said each time. And so we have to do it. We have to be as safe as possible, knowing that there will be times that you cannot physically distance from students.
Okay, and then my other two questions is, all the kids would be, like all the kids and staff members would be sharing and using the same bathroom. Are those gonna be like constantly cleaned, or how is the bathroom situation gonna work?
Again, I can jump on that because we had that specific conversation with the Health and Safety Committee also. As first of all, yes, we talked a lot about sanitation, and that sanitation now is not a custodial job. It's every single person's job. And then specifically for bathrooms, we talked about limiting the number of children or to the number of people in a bathroom to the amount of stalls in a bathroom. So if there's 2 stalls, there'd be no more than 2 children in a bathroom at a time. And again, it's going to be, constant cleaning at both buildings.
Okay, and then the last question is like the lunch, because I know we have like the mask mandate and we all have to wear masks, which I am very happy about that we all have to wear them. But if we're all in the same building and all of the students and all the staff are in an enclosed building and we all have to eat lunch, we're all gonna have to take our masks off. How is that safe?
Again, I can jump on that because that was also a discussion for the Health and Safety Committee. And Kayla, we'll be working with Dr. Smith and Ms. Umar. Could be lunches in the classroom we talked about. We've also talked about, especially in the fall, because we have such a large area at Parkway, since you're specifically a Parkway employee, about lunches outside, either across from the playground in the grassy area. Parkway has enough land and space that we can make sure that people are socially distanced during lunch.
What about when it's below 0, when it starts to snow?
Then we'd have to change. But right now we're worried about September until and for the first trimester. So yes, obviously things will change as the weather changes.
Larry, if I can just ask a follow-up to clarify. I mean, we started the session by you giving a recommendation of the day in terms of virtual reopening, at least to begin, which I guess I kind of understood that, your mindset as of today was a phased reopening, because by implication, we wouldn't be virtual permanently. But I guess my question is, since that was the disposition that you kind of set forth, are these committees reapproaching or going to reapproach the plans for reopening with an eye on, starting virtual and then transitioning from the most restrictive to the least restrictive environment? And because we're talking a lot about what's going to happen if there's masks, and I guess my question is, based on what you started out saying, is that more of a step 2 issue than a step 1? I mean, are we focusing more on what needs to be done to get us up to speed virtually, or are we just doing everything on all fronts to make sure that we cover all the bases in these committees?
Again, the quick answer is our committee's task has been to be able to recommend to the board all 3 phases, that if it's fully virtual, if it's a blended model, or if it's all virtual, what's going to be needed from an instructional standpoint, what's needed for a social emotional standpoint, and what's needed from a health and safety standpoint for all 3 of those phases. And, as I said today, and just in the last 3 weeks, my recommendation has changed just because of which day it is. And now it's July 23rd. Eventually we will say this is the phased approach that we will do, and we'll make a final decision about that, knowing that, but we have to be prepared for all scenarios, and that's what the committees are doing.
When it comes to the board then taking whatever the action is that it's going to be, you're going to come to us with a recommendation that says, I choose A, B, or C, or some combination thereof, but then we're going to have all this other information, at least, for next week. So how do we take that information as a board? Are we going to be then taking what you say, saying this is your recommendation and this is what the committee did, and then saying go back to the committee, now focus on a hybrid approach or an all virtual approach or a blended approach based on what the board decides? Is that how you envision kind of?
Yep, I think, yes, exactly. On Tuesday, you're going to get our reports. And I'm hoping that by the end of that meeting that you and the rest of the board can say, right now it sure looks like we're going to be, just what I recommended today, all virtual. So go back and get very prepared for us to be all virtual, with the understanding that we will probably have a blended approach and an all-person approach before, the end of the 2020-21 school year. I think we'll have all 3 approaches at one time during the year. But what we need from you on Tuesday is, this is where we're leaning towards, knowing that we are prepared for all 3.
Okay, thank you. All right, since we've been allowing people to do very quick follow-ups, I'll just call in Tracy, and it's Tracy Stetler again. I'd ask if you could just keep your follow-up comment to a minute.
Absolutely. My follow-up question actually has to do with what Carrie touched on with the large amount of transfers between grades and with certain teachers. My question is, were these transfers based on the best interests of the teachers, both social, emotional, safety, and educationally based transfers? And if not, if they were planned before the world changed, can there be changes or transfers made for our teachers that are in those best interests so that we can protect our teachers at all costs? My second question is just a real short one, and probably more for the educational piece. With the report cards came the standard school supplies list, which I'm thinking is probably different. And so I just want to get the question out there about parallel lists or things that we can supply our teachers and staffs with that would be new to this year, that would be, because obviously communal supplies would not apply to this year. And so I think that for the emotional or the educational committee, that would be something that would be of high importance so that we have enough time to like try to find Clorox wipes. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, but both of those, again, I'm not going to dive deep into the principal's decisions to move. I do know it was done in the best interest of student learning. They had talked about looping, which means that teachers would follow kids. And so that's part of it. I don't want to speak for them though, but I will speak with both Dr. Smith and Mr. Rogers and Ms. Tucker to have a full answer for you at the next board meeting.
Thank you so much. I just feel like it's really important to make sure that our teachers are protected at all costs, because if they fall, then the whole system falls.
And Larry, if I can just build on that for a moment, how are we including the teachers in our discussions?
They are part of our committee. All three committees have teachers on them, teachers and staff members.
Okay. All right, then Ann Ledbetter has a quick follow-up. If you could keep it to a minute. I'm very sorry. So we have a couple more people after you.
No problem. Yeah, I'm Ann Ledbetter, 710 West Fairfield Court. I have 3 kids. My youngest is in K5, and so I have a question about the virtual learning for the really young kids. I do appreciate that there was not much time to develop a virtual curriculum in the spring, and I'm sure it'll be a lot better in the fall, but yet I still have doubts that my 5-year-old can sit in front of a computer for any length of time. And I actually don't think it's very good for him to spend that much time in front of a screen. So I guess I've heard about parents setting up pods for learning, you know, kind of just privately getting pods together. And I've also heard concerns that these pods will be, you know, not necessarily socially, racially, economically diverse, that it will mostly just privilege, you know, certain families. And so I guess I wondered if it would be possible for the school district to have pods sort of set up and arranged by the school, rather than just making parents kind of privately arrange their own pods.
Okay.
And just quickly, that the instructional committee has been very specific and will be very specific about that.
Okay. And then our next question comes from Melissa Fisher.
Okay, so I have a few questions. I'll start with my first one. So what are we going to do if a student or staff member becomes sick? Are we going to like shut down the entire school? Or maybe we don't have an answer for that yet.
Melissa, I'll quickly answer that because that was Health and Safety Committee. It depends on the sickness. It depends on if a student or a staff member is having COVID-19 symptoms. What we are planning at both buildings is that we will have an isolation room for any student or staff member that is exhibiting COVID-19 and still maintain a regular health room, especially at Parkway. You know, we know that the first grader is going to try to jump from the monkey bars somewhere and scrape their knee and need just regular first aid in the health room. So we'll have a health room and an isolation room at both buildings.
Okay, perfect. 2 other questions. Was there any talk about how Allied Arts is going to work? Did they mention anything about that? Considering we see all students?
The quick answer is yes, it's been discussed for multiple ways. That's half of that is the instructional. The other part is the health and safety. We've talked about, you know, at Parkway specifically, do the Allied Arts go into the classroom to relieve or to limit the amount of travel? Do we do Allied Arts outside? You specifically are in the computer lab, so how do you know? We can't take the computer lab to the classroom, but we can. You know, we're working on that.
Okay, and then my last question before I leave. What about recess? I know a lot of kids that come in and visit the computer lab, they're constantly talking about recess and such. And I was just wondering how that's going to work, if at all.
As a matter of fact, we are, and Dr. Smith was on our committee meeting for the health and safety and did a wonderful job of note-taking for us. We need kids outside as much as we can. And again, Parkway has such that large area, the large field to the south side of Parkway, that we envision using a much larger area of time for having kids outside.
Would that require more staff members to be outside? That was my
Possibly.
question.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was it. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Thank you. And then our next person is Jamie McConnell.
Sure. So thank you guys. It's actually Jamie Vandenhoven, but I live at 2350 West Marne in the Crestwood subdivision, and I have one child going into second grade next year. And I guess my concern is, if we do virtual learning, and I understand that with everything that's going on, are there going to be any sort of checks and balances put in place, any testing that will be done to ensure that they have the curriculum learned to go into the next grade? Just because I know this year it was just kind of like a, hey, don't worry, everybody's going to pass type of thing. But I get concerned for maybe parents who do work full time and can't give 100% to those kids that are home learning. How do we address those concerns?
Jamie, those are great concerns that I do know that Ms. Westfall had discussions with in the instructional committee. And I do believe that she will address that as part of her report to the board on Tuesday. There are ways to make sure that we are assessing children to make sure that the learning targets that we need kids to meet, that they are meeting those learning targets is the quick answer, but it's going to be more discussed on Tuesday from the instructional committee.
Larry, just to build on that, when it comes to instructional materials, I know that a lot of our coursework is going to be, a lot of our coursework, generally speaking, is online. When it comes to some of these things that are more traditional, reading and any other courses where there will be text, is there some type of process being discussed for how students are going to receive those texts and other materials at the beginning of the year to make sure that they have them at home?
And again, I think
if we do full virtual, I guess.
I think we would. One of the successes last year from the Parkway was the red bag materials that we were able to get out to students so that they had the materials that they needed. Later on in the spring, our two library media specialists were able to get books out from, they set up how families could order and get books from our libraries. That worked very well. So yes, we will make sure that the materials that students need, that they have.
So good. So math, science, and library books are all going to, there's going to be a process in place. That's good. Okay. And then I think our next one is Jenny Doss had a follow-up. And Ms. Doss, I would ask, since you're following up, if you could limit your remarks to a minute.
Yep, I just had a question about the staffing changes. The question or the statement that Larry said was that a lot of the staffing changes had to do with looping. And I just was, had a follow-up question about that. I know that my student's teacher was moved, but not looping. So I just was curious about that. I think partly because we were hoping that there would be looping and there wasn't. Especially with some of my students that we were hoping to see teachers in positions and then they weren't. So because I also am a little concerned about how many teachers are not in the same positions that they were in. And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would need to have more specifics from you, Ms. Doss, but the looping that I was talking about was mostly from because there was more of a Parkway question. But I will also get answers from Mr. Rogers and Ms. Tucker. So I can share those answers with you.
Okay. And then from Max Power, I don't know if it's two people or one, but Max Power / Ryan Miller?
So it is Ryan Miller. Max Power is a Simpsons joke, so I just never changed it out from other Zoom calls, but neither here nor there.
Okay.
So Ryan Miller is my name, 2620 West Acacia Road. We'll have a boy in K4 and second grade this year.
Right.
And I do appreciate the work that everyone's doing here and the very difficult jobs that you have, and our hearts go out to you, and you guys are doing great. And we appreciate you. I keep hearing about this robust virtual learning, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this when the information becomes available. Robust virtual learning for a 10th grader is going to look a lot different than it will for my second grader. Things didn't go well for us in the spring, and it wasn't for lack of a trying by the district or the teacher, but I don't think 6-year-olds are particularly made for this sort of thing. I would argue that adults may not be made for virtual training. I don't particularly like going to webinars myself, but similar to Anne's comments, I'm concerned about virtual learning for young ones and concerned about them falling behind academically, but we'll go with the flow, and we appreciate all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that we don't see. The question that I have some friends who are unable to be here that have children with special needs and IEPs, and I'm sure there's going to be more information that'll be coming out next week, but can someone give us a little bit of a spoiler about some of the considerations for virtual learners that have special needs?
Well, and I can do a quick comment on that. I do think that we are in a different era. Last year on March 17th, to be specifically, we shut down on March 13th, but the governor shut schools down where nobody was allowed into schools until June 30th, without special exceptions for food gathering, lunches or breakfasts, or those type of essential workers that needed to be inside of a school building. That no longer is true. So even if we do all virtual, that doesn't mean we can't have small cohorts come into the buildings, special education students or students with English learning needs, or other students that we know of that need additional support. This year we are able to do that, where in the spring that just wasn't allowed by state mandate. So that's the quick answer. And I do know that Dr. Kilton and the special education staff and was also talking to Dr. Kabara from Nicolay and the other partner districts specifically about special education, and making sure that we are meeting not necessarily IEPs that are dictated by minutes anymore, but are dictated by learning goals or IEP goals, and then creating plans to make sure that those goals are met. Not necessarily that you have to do 45 minutes of whatever in any given week, that we really write the IEPs as to the specific need of that child. And I know we are working on that right now.
That's terrific. Thank you very much for that consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Larry, just to also follow up on that, I know that we have occupational therapy, and I don't know if we have offhand about rehab therapy, but we're hiring a social worker. We have a school psychologist. Outside of the building, I just want to make sure I understand. Outside of the building, will our staff be able to reach out to students in a home environment if they are at home?
Yes, we're doing that currently for our summer programming, but it gets a little tricky because we have to make sure that the family member wants it, and that the adult of our staff member is also capable of going into someone's home. So most likely it'd be probably more kids coming into the building instead of us going out to individual homes. And we would make that feasible for all families. If they don't have transportation into the buildings, we'd make sure that we get it for them.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, with that, it looks like we've been going for almost an hour and a half. So I think, Larry, if you agree, I think maybe now would be a good time to do last call. I think we've gone through a lot of things today. So if anyone has anything else, I'll allow everyone another minute to put the name down. But Barring anything else, I think that that's going to be it for the evening. We can wrap up our listening session.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Christy, as well. Okay, and I appreciate the comments on here, but we do have a motion to adjourn. So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and then all in favor, I'm going to call from left to right on my screen. Danielle Bailey.
Aye.
Tamika Vukovic.
Aye.
And Andrew Franklin votes aye. Thank you, everyone, for joining
Thank
us.
you.
We will be here to answer more questions, and if you have questions, please reach out, especially to Larry, who's been working so hard on this. Thank you so much.
Bye.